Everything's just so painful.
Putting yourself in challenging situations makes you grow. We're planning an expedition. We're cycling from Alaska to Patagonia.
30,000 kilometers, crossing 15 countries. I'm a conservation scientist. My research, trying to understand what are the solutions when it comes to the social environmental problems. The answer is always My name is Timm and I'm 44 years old. I live in Edmonton, so Western Canada, but I was born in Germany. So I'm a conservation scientist. I've spent a lot of time living in a hammock in the rainforest in Borneo and Thailand. No internet, no Wi-Fi, no phone, completely exposed to the elements. Washing in rivers, spending my time with orangutan, elephants. To me, as amazing as it gets. But then I do 3 years of very challenging research. It's not all romantic, it's beautiful, but I mean incredible challenges.
For how long have you been an athlete?
I'd like to say I've always been an athlete, but I have not necessarily always competed. We did a big Ironman event in Patagonia, end of 2022, so I feel that's been my starting point for triathlons.
The conditions are dreadful. It's hosing down. Everything's just so painful. This is arguably the hardest thing I've ever done.
What are the endurance sports that you train for?
Yeah, so at the moment I train for an Ironman, and that's scarily close. So that's 3.8 kilometers swimming, 180 kilometer riding, and running a marathon, so 42 point a few hundred meters. I love the resilience.
We're both freezing. It's way colder than coming out of the fjord this morning.
So oftentimes when it's hard, I just remind myself, look, this is a very privileged position to get on my bike and just cycle 100 kilometers. I'm just so grateful that I'm able to do this, because a lot of people can't do what I'm doing, be it physically, be it mentally. I feel very fortunate to be in a position where I can be so athletic.
Right now it feels like I've never done this. But I also had lots of baby oil. Now I just have human sweat. It doesn't work so well.
The baby oil in there.
Leanna Carrier of Edmonton, Canada, doesn't remember a time when she wasn't an athlete.
I've been in sports since I was very young. I was a gymnast and a competitive pole vaulter and track and field athlete for Canada. I've been a personal trainer for the last 20 years, so I've always done sport and transitioned into the endurance sport after having my daughter. It was just a better life balance. Mainly training for Ironmans, so swim, bike, run.
What do you love so much about pushing your body to the limit like that?
I love pushing my body and seeing where it takes my mind. I love the challenge that seems pretty hard, and accomplishing that challenge and the steps you do to attain that goal, whether it's a race or a hard workout session, and you're like, yesterday was a really hard session and I was like, I need to push my mind through this because I know when I do the Ironman it's going to be that much harder. So familiarizing my body and your mind helps you perform. I couldn't even go on my bars, my stomach was cramping so bad. Now, one step at a time. 42 kilometers. I've been fortunate enough to do some pretty great events. Went to the base camp of Mount Everest and ran a marathon down.
Leanna Carrier is preparing for the race of her life, Mount Everest, for the Everest Marathon.
The training for that was really hard, training at altitude, training for the Olympics, all these things that really kind of push you out of your comfort zone to really challenge your mind in a lot of ways. I love it. And endurance sport is kind of the pinnacle of that because you're out there for hours and hours and hours. You have to somehow accomplish your goal of the workout because you know that'll get you to the finish line. I have bad days too, or days I don't want to get out of bed, but putting yourself in challenging situations.
Leanna is suffering even more. stomach pain, and she's been having stomach pain for hours and hours and hours since the bike ride.
Makes you grow, and I think a growth mindset is so important, and being open and listening and being aware of what's changing around you. I just love the growth mindset of it.
For sure. Well, it's always 10 degrees colder on the bike.
Yeah, and we're coming from this hot room.
Yeah, wait till you get to our apartment.
What are your most memorable personal highlights?
Yeah, well, one year I did the Mount Everest Marathon. I did my first Ironman Canada, full distance Ironman, and then I did the hardest triathlon in the world in Patagonia. So I did probably what people would train their entire lives for one. I did in the span of about 6 months, but it was a lot of fun, and each race was so different. Being in Nepal, being in Penticton. Penticton has a whole historical background. Ironman started in Hawaii, and then they wanted to bring a northern Ironman, so they had picked Penticton, and so there's a huge community. And then to do one of the hardest triathlons in the world in Patagonia 3 months after the Ironman Canada, it was really kind of a special year to have done all three and been fortunate enough to finish all three and to travel to these places. So it was a great year.
A memorable highlight. I'd say cycling across Canada was absolutely fantastic. Halifax to Vancouver in 30 days, so long days, 150 kilometers a day, quite standardized, and we collected scientific data on our body, our mind, our nutrition. So that was purely plant-based, and the results were just really, really good. Wonderful memories, just fantastic outcomes.
So how was it, guys? Your little swim in a river?
I love it.
Nice cool down on a hot day.
Fun experience.
Yeah, it's fun, but the current is so strong, and I feel you only notice when you're trying to come out. And it's almost, if you miss the right point, you're just going all the way to the high level.
I've always gone through periods where I'd be very vegetarian, but I'd say very strictly vegan for a couple of years without being able to pinpoint exactly. As a scientist, I study climate change, I study global change. So biodiversity loss is one big one, and that's related to land use change. So we've lost about 70% of wildlife populations globally in less than 50 years. Climate change, we know that deforestation, land use change, especially for animal agriculture, so that's both directly for animals, but it's also for the feed produced for animals, is really fueling climate change, so global warming. It's my research trying to understand what are the solutions when it comes to the social environmental problems that we have, and the answer is always, well, we have to go plant-based. So I'd like to say that's probably been my initial driving force, but I feel there's one argument which never goes away, and that's the ethical component. How we as humans treat fellow species, and I think in a lot of ways it reflects how we treat each other as humans. So for me, that's always the one where there's not even a discussion. Most people have pets, and people are so obsessed, with their dogs and cats. How do you have such a seemingly close relationship, but how do you not see those animals we consume? So just understanding that all these creatures, they have the same nervous system, they have the same feelings, they have the same emotions, towards their fellow creatures, towards their offspring. So it's no different.
Would you say you had any challenges in making the switch?
I do remember the days where it felt maybe a little bit daunting. This idea of never. So I'm never going to eat this again, I'm never going to eat that again. That's a little bit of an interesting space to find yourself in. Be willing to take that step. But sort of physically or physiologically, I found it very, very easy. The biggest benefit for me is being able to look into the mirror and feeling good about that decision, because it's not about me, it's about the animals. It's about the planet. It's about being a steward. It's good to make that step yourself, but then you're also in a position where you have a story to tell. I'd always encourage everyone, be an advocate. And there's so many ways to do this. You don't necessarily have to stand in the streets holding up a sign, and that's great too. But if you don't feel comfortable at first anyhow, invite the people around you to explore that idea. It just doesn't cross people's mind, and that might be mind-boggling to us because it seems so obvious, right? The connections are so obvious, they're so striking. There's nothing in between. It's what's on your plate versus the animal. A tip for someone to become vegan, I love to look at some role models, so to speak, like really high-achieving athletes. Just taking them by example and understanding, well, if they can do it, surely I can do it too. Kind of this win-win, I don't know how many win situation. It's just benefits of going plant-based.
For how long have you been vegan?
I'd say about the last 4 years. Shortly after meeting Tim, and he's a climate change ecologist, he said it was the one biggest thing an individual can do for the health of the planet, and that really hit me. Learning and hearing more of those facts from Tim was like, I was like, whoa, okay, let's make a change. And I was kind of already on that path. I was pretty much vegetarian, and then so it was a very easy switch at that point. For years I've rescued animals and, you know, never made that big connection around what we call beef and cow and why is that different. And I feel like I'm a super empathetic person, and so I really just felt crushed. So becoming vegan just became more in line with who I am as a person. Being a personal trainer, the ups and downs of diet trends is something that you're always kind of listening to what the clients are saying, but you can never argue with animal welfare or the climate crises. Like, those are two things that are happening now, and as an individual, we can mitigate those by not eating meat, and it's a choice, so why not make the better choice? I feel we've lost touch with that empathetic side of ourselves. If you put a live chicken on a plate, like, are you gonna, you know, like what happened for that piece of chicken to get there is quite awful, and the screaming animals in there, the slaughterhouses, and the smells, all of it is just, when there's options out there that are better for you and better for the planet, there's just no reason why you shouldn't be vegan. Like, I just don't understand how people are okay with themselves or other people killing animals because they want to do it themselves. It stumps me, but again, I was not vegan for many years. So I think it's that disconnect you have, and you just believe it because your mom and dad told you, and they didn't know, they grew up on meat and potatoes, and you don't really think twice about it until you start connecting with the natural world again.
What do you think is the biggest benefit of being vegan?
I like how it makes you kind of challenge your thought process, because I think when we do that as a human, we challenge ourselves kind of on our own individual basis, that's when we can really start to sit with it and think, well, what is right and what is wrong and what is better. I get gratitude out of just not eating meat because I know it's doing so much better for the health of the planet and protecting lives. And I only hope that, like, my daughter sees that and future generations see that. And the clients I'm with, when they ask me, what do you eat? And I say I'm vegan, and they kind of look at me. So I love spreading the word about it as well, because there's some misconceptions. Like, I had one client, he's like, well, you look healthy. I was like, what do you think a vegan is? I was like, he's like, you know, really like skinny, and they don't, you know, frail looking. So I like that now I kind of have more confidence behind when I'm talking to people, whether it's the science or the animal welfare, or now that we've done studies on ourselves when we cycled across Canada being completely vegan, and all the results came back very well. We were able to hold on to muscle, we didn't get sick. Like, we just have more and more things that show that eating this way is completely the way to go, and it's the way what we need for our future moving forward.
The truth is, we write scientific papers and it doesn't change anything. I need to do more. That's in a way the evolution for me to do this Wings of Survival project.
We're planning an expedition. June next year, we're cycling from Alaska to Patagonia.
30,000 kilometers, crossing 15 countries, trying to do it in 9 months. But the cool part is we follow the migration of birds. And we're really trying to create a story where we are very organically blending the human athlete component and a nature conservation element It's not easy for a lot of people to understand what it means for a bird to fly from Alaska to Patagonia, basically in one stretch. That's 11 days of flying non-stop. It's outrageous. It's beyond what any human will ever be capable of. So we're in a way portraying those birds as the best athletes on the planet, which they truly are, to give people just another perspective, to look at ourselves as who we are in this big kind of puzzle of living beings. So what's our place in the biosphere? We tend to look at ourselves as the pinnacle of evolution. Sure, we've got big brains, even if we don't tend to use it in the most wise ways, unfortunately, very often. But when it comes to athletics, I mean, animals are just beyond us, you know, what they're capable of. So it's this idea of storytelling.
Do you want to help? You can go press Tim's leg really hard. I'm going to make lasagna tonight, so it's one of our favorite dishes because it's just jam-packed with nutrients. Also, we have the diet cheese, which I love. Kind of for our ground, we like this mushroom protein crumbles from Big Mountain Foods. It's pretty simple once you cook the noodles and prep. So I just have a tomato sauce I made with kind of mix a bit of a tomato salsa sauce. Just layer the bottom a little bit. And lots of people like eating this dish. Usually they're like, that was vegan? You make it like any other lasagna. You just use vegan cheese, the vegan crumble. And it's even healthier for you because there's added, because you're having so many more vegetables and fiber. Okay, so yeah, I just layer it just like I do any other lasagna, and then I'll throw the meat on. The meat, it's not meat, it's the crumble. But then I'll do a little bit of cheese on this layer, and then I'll get some of the mushrooms. So now I'll layer with portobello mushrooms. I love mushrooms, and they've been used in a lot of different vegan products. Mushrooms have superpowers. It's gonna be delicious. Kind of use an all-season garlic type spice. We sprinkle. We layer with zucchini. I usually just go a little drizzle of oil thing. I also use salt. Being athletes, if you have low blood pressure, low heart rate, salt is very good. So just get a little more sauce on here. When we did our ride across Canada, Tim's metabolic rate was higher. It was the highest ever recorded. So he takes in, when he's training, 10,000 calories a day. Is that about right, Tim? 10,000? Yeah. So it's a lot of food that Tim needs. Yeah. So I have to add extra. It's a lot of food. So, and I take in probably, I'm around 5 to 6. I might be closer to 6, but yeah. So it's a lot of food. I'll cheese it again. And then you have to make sure you do enough weightlifting to lift the tray off the stove. And we do the final noodle layer. Sauce it up. You have to have a little cheese on the top. I just like to make sure every corner is covered. I just add like a garlic seasoning on top. And oven. Yep, should be ready by 6. This is my vegan lasagna.
This project really embraces all my skills, my expertise, and to drive impact. I couldn't think of a better way personally to do this.